You're listening to the Inside the Mix podcast with your host, Marc Matthews.
Hello folks, and welcome to the Inside the Mix podcast. A big welcome to any new listeners, and of course a big welcome back to the returning listeners. In this episode, we're celebrating another amazing year of the podcast. In 2025, I had the pleasure of sitting down with a plethora of amazing producers, audio engineers, mastering engineers, and everything in between. And in this episode, we are going to be celebrating just those conversations. Truth be told, this is part one of a two-part series where I'm going to be sharing 7, so that's 7 in this episode and 7 in the next episode, top moments of the podcast in 2025. So it's going to be a mixture of practical tips, mindset shifts, and just general light bulb moments across this fantastic year that we've had at the podcast. Now, I wish I could include every guest that I've had on the show this year because every conversation had a golden moment in it. But that being said, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has supported the podcast throughout this year and the previous years, to be honest, and also featured on the podcast as well. It's you that keep this podcast ticking over, keep it going, and also help me to keep it growing as well. And whilst we're on that topic, I am planning 2026, and I want your input. I want you to be part of the podcast next year. Help me shape it. Click the link in the episode description and fill out the quick 2-minute survey. What's working with the podcast? Maybe what isn't working with the podcast? What do you see? What do you want to see more of? And maybe what you want to see less of? Or maybe just something else entirely altogether. There is a free text box in there. And also, share your music win of 2025 and feature on episode 227, which is going to be the last episode of 2025. And a big thank you to everybody who has submitted their feedback so far. It is invaluable information for me and the podcast going forward. And I'm also excited to share your wins that you've shared so far as well. So folks, before the deadline, that is the end of November, click that link in the episode description and feature on the podcast on episode 227 and also help me shape the podcast in 2026. Click that link, folks. Here's why this episode matters. At the end of the year, most of us look back at what worked and what didn't work in that previous year. In this and the next episode, we're going to unpack insights that helped artists finish music faster, mix smarter, and also stay creative longer. So my first highlight of 2025 is episode 179 with Shane Slack, and it's titled Mix or Master First. And it's the secrets to better audio production. So in this episode, we touch on, should I mix or master first? Why understanding your source material was crucial to avoid unnecessary processing, the pitfalls of shortcut seeking behavior, breaking out of the plugin chain trap, and techniques for creating depth and movement in your mixes. And in particular, this one clip that I'm sharing with you is Shane talking about using bit depth, ironically here, to add depth in a mix. So hear me out, listen to this, because this was a true light bulb moment. And of course, with all of these sort of episodes that I'm recommending here, folks, these top moments of 2025, do go and listen to these episodes if you haven't done so already. And in fact, just go and re-listen to them anyway, because they're fantastic episodes. So this is my top moment of episode 179 with Shane Slack.
Even the other way I've been creating depth, like I've showed another colleague of mine, it's like, how do you create depth in the mix? And they immediately reach for saturation. And I'm like, well, that's an easy way to do it. Let's talk about a different way. What about bit depth? And he was like, what do you mean? And I grabbed like an Ableton Redux, because we were in Ableton at the time. Usually I use D16 decimal, but I'm like, your audience has no idea what the bit depth of your sample of the source is. So like, what if I put my drums in 12-bit? And what if I put my pads in 14-bit? And all that stuff. And I'm doing it in mono. And he's like, wow, why is it even in mono? It just sounds like there's like a three-dimensionality to it. And it's like, well, because, again, it's biasing against each other. But now you're creating depth that works both in mono and in stereo.
My second top moment of 2025 comes from episode 199, and it's titled The Hidden Production Habits You're Probably Ignoring at Your Own Risk. And in this episode, I was joined by my good friend, Tim Benson, aka R9. And we touch on topics such as 5 common music production mistakes, how to use reference tracks, track labeling, and session organization, and how to avoid over-processing and mixing and mastering. And in particular, the top moment I've taken from this particular episode is where we discuss starting small and upgrading later, and the importance of not falling into the trap of gear acquisition. So this is the top moment from episode 199. This, again, could be an episode in itself, is that buying more equipment, more plugins, isn't necessarily the answer to a problem that you might be facing. It could well be linked to maybe you just need to go back to basics and look at what you have at hand. And it might be actually you don't need to go out and buy the best EQ plugin out there. Maybe you need to actually refine your understanding of what equalization is and tonal balance before actually going out. So building up your skills before maybe having the ultimate perfect setup could be the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most, it probably, as we've said, like DAWs and all the different things, most of them now will come with everything you need to start making music. You won't need to go and buy a load of third-party things. Don't get sucked into that straight away. You've probably got a ton of things to learn within what you've got, and
most definitely. So my third top moment of 2025 in these 7 top moments of 2025 is episode 186, or rather it's taken from episode 186, Why LUFS Don't Matter As Much As You Think, with Ian Shepherd. So acclaimed mastering engineer Ian Shepherd. In this episode we discussed LUFS. How many LUFS should your master be? The truth about LUFS for Spotify. What does LUFS stand for? How normalization impacts your music across different streaming platforms, and lots more as well. And this particular excerpt, if you will, taken from this episode, I think I said that correctly, is where Ian talks about LUFS should be the result and not the target. Target could be seen as a dirty word in this instance. Sweeping statement there. So here we go. This is Ian Shepherd, episode 186.
A little bit of both. I mean, the honest answer is I don't really care about either of them. Because I don't choose my loudness by meters. I mean, I have a little kind of catchphrase that I came up with that I shared on socials, which is that the LUFS should be the result of the mastering, not the target of the mastering, right? Yep. So master it so it sounds good. Then the integrated value, don't get me wrong, is important because it's what streaming services use. And we can talk about that in more detail. So it has a big impact on what's going to happen to your music when it gets played back on Apple Music and YouTube and Spotify and Tidal and all the rest of them.
Yeah.
So it is important to know at the end of the process and to check that you're happy with the results that you've got. But when I'm working, actually, I tend not even to watch an LUFS meter. As I say, I've got my VU meter.
My fourth top moment of 2025 is taken from episode 197. Why I don't touch plugins before doing this. The art of static mixing with Nate Kelms of the Sound Discussion podcast. And in this episode, we discuss static mixing, how to transition from static mix to a full mix, top-down mixing as well, and analog gear versus plugins. What mix engineers prefer. And the highlight from this episode is Nate talking about trusting your gut and not your eyes. So this is episode 197 with Nate Kelms.
Like, I've increased this by 9 dB. That's way too much. I can't possibly do that. No, you know what? 9 dB might be exact. 12 dB might be what we need.
Yeah.
But on a screen, you see that curve jump up by 12 dB. You're like, nope, can't do that. Bring it down. I'm breaking the rules. No.
It goes back to what we said right at the beginning of trusting your gut. And if you're not using your eyes, which, there's always an argument to say sometimes we need to have that visual element. But
sure,
trusting your gut sometimes and thinking, actually, this song does need that. The rules, it's creativity, isn't it? Ultimately,
it's
at the
art,
end of the day,
right?
Yeah,
it's art,
exactly,
and it's subjective, and someone else may hate it, and someone else may love it. And you know what? As long as you are able to stand behind what you put out, it doesn't matter anything. None of it matters. 9 dB, 12 dB, hell, 30 dB if you want to.
My fifth top moment is taken from episode 193, and it's titled "I Asked a Pro if you really need a mastering engineer and if you can DIY, do it yourself." And this features Mike Marsh, who is just around the corner from me in Exmouth. So it was a pleasure talking to Mike for the first time, and then I had the pleasure of actually going to visit Mike at his studio, which was amazing. And he also mastered my track Darklight featuring Indigo as well. Did a banging job on that, so do go check out Mike's work. And it's great to have a fellow Devonian on the podcast. In this episode, we discuss what is music mastering and why it's important, common mastering mistakes, debunking the fix it in mastering myth, difference between mixing and mastering in music, and how to become a mastering engineer as well. Because Mike's been doing it a long time, so some really good advice there. And the moment taken from this episode is Mike discussing how a mastering engineer is the first new set of ears and why that is so important to the success of a song, of a release. So this is episode 193 with Mike Marsh.
A mastering engineer or somebody else working on your music is the first time another set of ears outside of your environment has heard what you're doing. When you're performing, mixing, recording, and then trying to master all of it yourself, you lose complete perspective on what sounds good anymore. And I've worked with a lot of artists who've tried it themselves, and they just end up chasing their tail, going round and round in circles, because they don't know anymore. And I admire people who give it a go, but right now I work with a lot of artists who are quite capable of recording their own stuff and mixing their own stuff and probably mastering their own stuff, if I'm honest, but they still send it to me because I'm that second set of ears.
The penultimate moment of this list of 7 is episode 187, The Midnight, Tyler Lyle, Unlocking the Secrets of Synthwave Songwriting. I was extremely excited by this episode because I'm a big Midnight fan. And in this episode, we discuss the essence of songwriting, collaboration process, production setup and vocal chain, daily creative disciplines, mythology and archetypes in lyrics. There's some really, really good advice on lyric writing here because it's something I struggle with. So I took loads away from this. And remote collaboration challenges. And in particular, the moment I've taken from this episode is where Tyler is talking about lyrics and the creative process and how he describes creatives as ferrying ideas from one realm to this one. Some really interesting stuff in this one. It's a fantastic listen. So this is episode 187 with Tyler Lyle at The Midnight.
Lyricists to be bolder, to push the limits of good taste, to like really make it challenging. There are people that push it in the horror thing or make it overly sexual. I mean, really, I think Gesaffelstein's new record kind of does it in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what a song is supposed to be lyrically. It's a well-narrated hallucination. Just make sure that it comes from something that feels like it has the essence of truth, something that feels like it needs to exist. We as creatives are ferrying ideas from one realm to this one, and make sure that it's not just created from a sense of like ego or needing the numbers to be up or somebody to hear, to validate me as an artist. Like, make sure the idea needs to exist first. And I think if you wait until that idea comes and then go all in on that idea, that song, then that's what the world needs more of.
And my final top moment in this first list of 7 in this 2-part series is taken from episode 213, Finish Tracks Faster, Workflow Hacks Every Producer Needs, featuring John Kunkel of The New Division. A big shout out to Michael Oakley for the warm introduction. It was a pleasure talking with John. Got loads out of this from a creative perspective, as I do with all episodes. So we discussed workflow optimization with reference tracks, sound selection versus processing, sound design and synthesis tools and where to begin, knowing when a track is finished, and we also discussed some of John's upcoming projects and where to connect with him, as I do with all the artists as well. So just on that note, folks, if you do want to learn more about any individuals that I've spoken to on the podcast, I always include links in the episode descriptions. And I put a link to all these episodes in the episode description for this episode as well. I said episode a lot there. So in particular, the highlight I've taken from this is where John discusses volume fader mixing and minimal EQ and his approach. So this is the final top moment of this first list of seven, and it's episode 213 with John Kunkel.
With my own tracks, I rarely, when I finish them and send them off to labels, I don't really do that much mixing to them. Mixing in the sense of like surgical EQing and stuff like that. Usually what I do is like I'll just level things out. So it's, I really do believe in just volume fader mixing and very minimal EQ, and then any other EQing is really for creative purposes.
And that wraps up my top moments of 2025 part 1. Make sure you tune in for part 2, which will obviously come next in line. A big thank you to everybody who has been part of the podcast, not only in 2025, but the years preceding that as well. And of course, a huge thank you to you, the listener. for sticking with the podcast, coming back every week and listening to me chat with some amazing people. You are what keeps this podcast going ultimately. And with that in mind, do click the link in the episode description, fill in that feedback survey. It will literally take you 2 minutes of your time and help me shape the podcast in 2026. And also share your musical win as well, because I want to feature you on the podcast in episode 227. You've got until the end of November to do that. Please do click that link in the episode description. If you've enjoyed this episode, folks, click the link in the episode description and check out the episodes I've recommended in this episode. And don't forget to join me in part 2. Until next time, keep creating, keep mixing, and I'll see you in the next episode.